And this show is also being brought to you by Thomas Allen, When Time and Not Really Counts. You can reach out to the Thomas Allen Collection at 678-960-9171. And the Thomas Allen Collection is a men's accessory line designed to attract and capture a variety of tastes with a unique appeal. Thomas Allen strives to produce extraordinary design to turn a new leaf on fashion for men and their desired occasions. I personally own several Thomas Allen collection ties, and when I tell you I highly recommend it, I definitely highly recommend it. I know my co-host BG owns a few ties. Anything you want to say about it, BG?
They make me feel real sporty when I step out. So, yeah, I definitely would recommend grabbing a tie from the Thomas Allen collection.
Definitely.
Support my frat brother.
And brought to you by the Selma Project, an initiative created to infuse hope and inspiration into the youth of Selma, Alabama through culture, art, and entertainment. This initiative calls on friends of the Selma movement to use their gifts and talents to pave a road to success for future generations. Check them out, selmaproject.com. And brought to you by faithful listeners everywhere. And now to the show. Welcome to the New South Movement.
Ladies and gentlemen, a classic.
This love. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gon' come. Yeah, I chose the path chose me. It's a Lord's plan, divine decree. Natural high, window sheet, up parallel view, let the ghetto see. BK, NOLA, OMF, GLD, Amazing Grace, Hater Whispers, blah, blah, blah. You too serious.
Welcome to the Free Lunch Podcast, home of the New South Movement. I am your boy Tight, one half of the Free Lunch Podcast duo, the South's hottest podcast duo, and I have my main man, my right-hand man, the co-pilot in this extraordinary production, BG with me. BG, how you feeling?
Yo, BG the 27 kid, what's happening there? Dog, I got one thing to say. It's hotter than a out here. This is ridiculous, man. You step outside, you start sweating.
Yeah. But see, I just got back from the Smoky Mountains. I was in that altitude. So when you way up, you don't feel the humidity.
When you way up, you feel blessed.
You feel. I wanted to open with it, but I said I'm gonna let BG open with it. But I felt like Riley Cooper. Way up, I felt blessed.
Yeah, we saw it. I think all of Instagram saw it too. Thank you for keeping us tapped into your vacation. We appreciate that, bro. While the rest of us at work, you out there feeding the horses and baking marshmallows and stuff. So we appreciate that.
Can I not inspire the people? I was on a spiritual journey. I was the alchemist. I was on a spiritual journey. Was that not inspirational?
I do support the movement.
It was a lot of hiking going on, seeing several deer, tons of deer. It's amazing. Seeing having to make decisions on which path to take.
So you learned a lot. Learned a lot about life.
It was good, yeah. Being able to live your truth, bridge builders, being able to walk over bridges, and just reminisce and remember on topics and things that you learned along a previous journey or what have you. I thought it was spiritual, but then I thought it was inspirational for the people. Did you not take it that way, sir?
You know, I know what you're trying to get across. I know the message you conveying with the IG post. I just had a question of who were running the IG and who were making them posts. So I appreciate you for letting the people know that you was documenting your time in the
But can I ask you a question?
Ask it, bro.
Have you ever been cold cocked at work? Because apparently that's what they doing out there in them streets.
They cold clocking folk?
Cold cocking. I ain't going to say sucker punch, but in regards to IK Impala, I'm going to call it because I can't pronounce his last name. IK Impala. Don't put your finger in his face.
For real. Don't do it.
Huh?
Don't do it.
They cold cocking Negroes out there.
Man, it's rough out here in these streets, for sure.
It really is, man. But anything else on your mind before we get into this next topic?
Nah, man, I don't have anything other than I'm just excited about what we got in store for the people today.
I am too, but even before we do that real fast, I thought the police conversation was very informative. I really, really, really hope listeners can go out there and listen to the police episode. I think it's informative, sir.
Well, we try. You know, we try to give a different perspective and raise people's awareness to what's going on. And it was good having an actual police officer to come on to the show and talk about it from that perspective, because, you know, we I guess we oftentimes discount the realness and the humanity that goes on. And we actually had a police officer that, in my opinion, is what you would expect. Someone who is not only not using their badge as a way of just being able to be lawless and do what they want to do, but someone that respects the station and is about protecting the people. So I enjoyed it, and I look forward to having Officer Simpson back on again for sure.
Definitely. And speaking of IG, man, you put amazing commercial promo. How should I identify your introduction for the police officer episode? Was that a commercial or a promo?
Say what? Was that a commercial?
Promo. Well, how should I describe that piece of art?
We ain't got the commercial yet. Let's just go with promo, trying to get people's attention focused on this Free Lunch podcast. We getting jiggy with it now. Don't get it twisted. We getting jiggy with that thing.
Nah. We getting jiggy. Nah.
What you eating, boy?
Hey man, let's get into the show.
Yes, sir.
Can you introduce, from what I've been told, and even from the laughter in the background, you have a special guest sitting next to you, a friend of yours, someone that can really bring a female perspective to this entire debate, really around just culture and what black women may experience on a day-to-day basis, but also be able to provide a perspective of going from corporate work to following their passion, something I tried to simulate while on my spiritual journey in the Smoky Mountains while I was hiking. So can you introduce that lovely guest you have sitting beside you, or both lovely guests?
I sure can. And, you know, as we've been doing this, the people keep stopping me and saying, we want to hear more women on here. We want to hear a female perspective. We tired of hearing y'all talk about it because y'all don't know what y'all talking about. So to the family, we going to fulfill that request. We've got some phenomenal women that's going to join us on this show. And our first featured guest is somebody that I've been knowing for over 10 years, getting close to 15 years. And I've actually kind of known her three times. And when I say 3 times, I think the first time I met her was through my cousin. And then after that, we when we were down in Auburn and she was in Tuskegee, we linked up through another set of friends, which I'll say TU, you know. Yeah. You want to do it one time?
No.
Oh, okay, you want to do it? All right. And then here we are again, this third time around at another phase of our lives. And so, you know, it's very, I guess, rare really to when you encounter people who share similar visions, who are living their lives in the same way and using their lives as a vessel to bless other people. And I've been fortunate enough to have encountered her, and she's such a phenomenal spirit. She's doing a lot of great things, and the people will really get something from this conversation. So without any further ado, we got the Shy Peacock, Simone Jones. Simone, what's happening?
Hey, y'all. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making time. We sitting up in this fly loft, dog. We got to upgrade our studio situation. We got to get to the high rise, but we thank you for coming on and making time for the Free Lunch podcast. How's everything been going? Being in the South for what, a couple of weeks now?
Yep, it's gonna be 3 weeks total. It's been good. It's been a sabbatical, and it was something that I didn't expect to happen. I didn't realize I needed it, but, you know, it's nothing like being at home.
Nothing like
and
being
this
home. This is definitely home. Birmingham, Alabama, sabbatical, dog. So I guess yours was a sabbatical, too, when you was out there feeding the horse.
So Dakota had been a part of that spiritual journey that I was on for a few days. So I wanted to repay Dakota.
Shout out to Dakota one time.
Simone, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks.
I'm excited, and a lot of it is because of some of the dialogue we had in preparation for today's show. And you talk about being on a 3-week sabbatical. I'm interested in understanding, and maybe we'll get into this as we talk more about your journey and your story to where you come from and where you're at today. But how were you able to take a 3-week sabbatical from the DMV area to Birmingham? Meaning, where'd you get all that PTO?
Well, my PTO started back in January. Just to give you a little perspective, I'm originally from Birmingham, of course, moved to D.C. in 2012, and my first job was as an insurance property adjuster, and it was very, very, very intense work, and I ended up leaving that position because it was so draining and decided to focus my attention on working in nonprofit because that's the kind of work I had been doing before I left Birmingham. And I actually had the privilege as well of owning a bookstore in downtown Birmingham, and it gave me the opportunity to figure out that nonprofit, charity, philanthropic work is kind of where I live. So when I wasn't able to really stay in the insurance industry anymore, I decided to just focus on nonprofit. Got into a nonprofit job, realized that it really wasn't for me. And I started asking for something to come about to kind of take me out of that.
Realized that the nonprofit job wasn't for you?
With nonprofit, and a lot of people don't realize, all nonprofit is not charitable nonprofit work. You have, shout out to Lakeshore Foundation here in Birmingham, but I worked at the Lakeshore Foundation, and it's one of those places where you get instant gratification for the work that you do because it's working with people with physical disabilities, chronic health conditions. You know, you could see a kid come in, you know, right out of the hospital with some mobility impairment. 6 months later, that child would be running. So it's very much instant gratification. I was doing scholarships. So there are nonprofits that are not charitable, and they are considered trade associations. And people pay to be a part of the organization so they can trade information. So it's very much like a business. They just label it as a nonprofit. And I was in one of those nonprofits, and it was in D.C. And it just wasn't fulfilling. Like, I went into the position knowing full well I was a little overqualified for it. I'd come out a really financially tough time. So, you know, I took the job and realized I had all these other interests and all these other things that I wanted to be doing. And, I mean, it wasn't working. And so I started really kind of open-heartedly saying, can something come along and change the situation for me? What is it that I should be doing? And like, I was there for maybe 6 months, like 6 months to the day. I got called into the office by my supervisor and was informed that I was being laid off. And I remember being told I was laid off, and the first thought I had was, dang, you could have told me this earlier. My sister was about to have a baby, like within 2 days. She was actually in labor, and I just booked a flight right before I got laid off to come to Birmingham like the following day. I was like, I wish you could have done this earlier so I could have went to Birmingham tonight. And my reaction to that was, it was like, this is what you need to be doing. You're not worried about it. You know, I have children, so I wasn't worried. So I ended up stepping out of that position, and I have been doing my own thing ever since.
Before we get into that story, because that's really where the real inspiration is, especially for us. You know, we talk about the empowerment and stepping out on faith and committing to your purpose. But let's go back to how you get to the point of having the courage to make a step like that. So talk a little bit about growing up in Birmingham, historic city. And right now they say ain't no money in Birmingham, but when I look around, there's stuff going on, so that make me feel a little bit different about it. But talk about what it was like growing up in this city.
Yeah, well, born and raised in Birmingham.
Shout out your high school. Shout out your high school. I need to know.
Rams.
Rams got a football team now.
Oh, Lord. Okay, sorry.
But grew up here in Birmingham. I would say I was raised by a single mother, but I was raised in a very tight-knit immediate family, which included my grandmother, a lot of little cousins, uncles and aunts, a very sheltered environment. And I say to this day that, although my father wasn't around, I have so many uncles and male figures that, are very protective, gave me some perspective. So I had a pretty sheltered and blessed, very fortunate upbringing. So, went to Ramsey. Let me back up.
Yeah, back up.
Let me back
Back
up.
all the way up.
Back up to birth. So it started like that. No, I'm just joking. No, it's too far. But yeah, so I started off at Winona Elementary School and got tested for advanced gifted behavior, whatever. Had always grown up as a reader. Everyone in my family's a reader. So it was just natural for me to start reading. And we all know, like, when you read, it develops your critical thinking. It develops a critical analysis. And so I was always that kind of kid. But, went to the local elementary school for a year. I had a teacher that saw something, suggested to my mother to go get me tested. And I ended up going into this gifted program at Central Park. I went to another elementary school between Winona and Central Park, but Central Park Elementary is ultimately where I finished my elementary school years. And I had this very, very influential, gifted, special education teacher named Miss Scott. And Miss Scott was that first person that really instilled learning, and it's okay to be smart, so she was really, really encouraging in that way. And I ended up I probably got some listeners that I was in school with Miss Scott with, because there was a group of us that she kept together. And I mean, Miss Scott was so serious that people would pour their children out of their elementary school to follow her wherever she was going, because she was that person. So I learned to play chess. Y'all remember them old computers, Oregon Trail, Carmen San Diego. Yeah, so, I remember all that stuff was very important. And then my mom, uncles, aunts, and all that sort of pushed that at home as well. So I went from there to W.J. Christian Middle School, another gifted program. Made some very important friendships, very important teachers, Miss Grissett, Miss May, Miss Willett, Mr. Vickers. I'm shouting all of them out. Yeah. They were very, very influential, very important to a lot of us. So influential that there's somebody from our class who's running for, I think she's running for like a judgeship here, Javen Patton. So, they turn out some good product. Yeah, and they were always telling us we could do whatever we wanted to do. So from there I went to Ramsey. Ramsey was probably one of the greatest experiences of my life.
Why you say that?
I made a lot of great friends. I graduated in 2000, so I was there from 96 to 2000. And it was a really cool experience. We had a lot of freedom. We went to high school on the South Side. So we were all sort of around whatever avant-garde was for Birmingham at that time. It was going to be on the South Side. And we were kids from all over the city, because it's an alternative high school, so everybody, there's no zoning. So, I met kids off the east side, from the west side, some kids that Jefferson County, so we wouldn't have known each other on any level. So it was great. It was great. And so from there is when it got real good.
Yeah,
it got real.
Talk about it. So this is after leaving Ramsey. And I just go say that, like, when you meet somebody from Ramsey, especially from that particular era, they're different. I know a lot of people and they're bright minds and stuff like that. So I guess that does speak to what y'all got from Ramsey. But yeah, talk about the real good.
And from there, I went to Tuskegee.
You ain't gonna do it?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
I might sing Ball and Parlay.
Oh,
I might.
We're gonna play that. We're gonna put that in. We're gonna put that in right here. We're gonna put that in right here. Okay, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
the great Tuskegee University, and you have to know there's a difference. There's a difference. Older people.
Institute. My folk went to the Institute.
The Institute. And they make that clarification.
My folk went to the Institute.
And I went to the university right when they started with cable on campus. You know, a little bit more technology.
For sure.
Savvy, a little, just a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But I am glad to say that I'm still in that era where you had to sign up for class manually.
Mm-hmm.
You could call in and pay for school, and they would mail you your registration with the red stamp. And if you had that red stamp, you were good.
Good to go.
You only had to wait 6 hours, so you could get your book vouchers. So before everything was automated, but it was a good period of time. And Tuskegee was very influential in how I learned to relate to other women, young women. I had my 3 best friends on the planet came from my experience at Tuskegee. And when I think about it, it's probably 5 or 6 overall that I keep in contact with. Why are you looking like that?
Man. Shout out to the crew.
To the crew.
Sam.
Mel.
Drill. What's happening?
But, you know, we were tight. You know, we were tight. We were sounding boards, very honest relationships. And a lot of young women understand that when you go, I think guys have this experience too, but when you go to college, especially a small school like that, it's like going to high school in a lot of ways. So it's gossip and people kind of click up, and, you know, it's just the nature of how things kind of pan out. And in the midst of all this, these 3 girls were always present. And it's been like that. We've been gone since 2004. We all started leaving 2004, 2005. And to this day, we're still together. We all live in different places, but I get caught up in the hated group chats. But we do that. We check in on each other. And so those were the first girls.
Did you have siblings growing up?
I do. I have a younger sister. I guess this is important. I was the only child in our immediate family for about 6 years. And then my uncles and aunts started having children. So I have one. The first child I came to interact with was a cousin, my cousin Tim, very close. He's in my Instagram, social media. You know, you'll see him around, but he's about 6 years younger than me. So he was a very first kid that I sort of interacted with within my family. But I have a 9-year-old, a sister that's 9 years younger than I am.
And one quick question. What was the relationship, or why wasn't your father around?
Well, my mom and my dad split up when I was about 2. You know, and shout out to my mom. You know, it was a situation where my father is a musician. He's an artist. And his art was most important to him. And he didn't really know how to balance the, you know, family life, being responsible in that way with being an artist. And my mother, who was always supportive of the artistry, would go to shows with them, all of that, kind of was like, hey, we got a kid, we got to get serious, and it didn't really work for him. So, you know, she packed us up. We were in Tuscaloosa for a while. She packed us up, came back to Birmingham, and he's been in and out of the picture. Not so much these days since I've had children, not as much, but at one point I would see him maybe like once a year. But I guess this is something else that's important. My mother made sure that I had a relationship with my father's side of the family. So my grandmother on my father's side.
She made sure you had a relationship with your father's side of the family, but not with your dad. Did I miss something, or?
He wasn't there.
He was still alive, though, right?
Yeah, he's still alive. Yeah, he just decided to leave and kind of do his own thing. You know, once my mom removed herself from the marriage, he decided, you know, to go ahead and kind of pursue his music. And so he's pretty nomadic. You know, he just kind of moves around. But, you know, my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, everyone on that side of my family, they're present. They've always been present. He's kind of the odd man out. It's kind of sad, but he's a little bit of the odd man out by his own choice.
To Tuskegee, what is it about? because we've had this conversation. Like, we had an episode of talking about HBCUs, and we really couldn't talk about it from a real personal, because we didn't go to HBCUs. But what would you say that is about a Tuskegee to where you build those type of relationships, to where outside of getting that strong academic, you're able to create that bond, and you talk about like this sisterhood among black women, to where there's this great degree of respect? What is it about the institution that creates that type of?
Well, I'm a proponent of energetic influence. Everything holds energy. Everything is influenced by energy. And we were privileged to go to school on the grounds of ancestors that literally built that school, and they built opportunity for themselves. And, that stays. Like, what do they say? Energy is neither created nor destroyed.
It's only transferred.
It remains. And, yeah, it's an entity unto itself. And that energy is around. And it comes out in things like, at Tuskegee, you are required to read Up From Slavery. And the founder, Booker T. Washington, wrote the book. But you are also required to read Souls of Black Folks, which was the opposing point of view. We had professors like Professor Fluker, who was assigning books like Francis Cress Welsing ISIS Papers. That's kind of...
Yeah, you ain't going to find that in most institutions, academic institutions.
It's like when you get there as a freshman. I'm just speaking for Tuskegee, and I think it's like this for most HBCUs, but when you get there, there's an expectation that you honor the history that's there, and you make it a part of your daily language. And to walk by Chappie James Arena, when you go to Chappie, that's what you say. It's in your language. Tuskegee Airmen is prevalent all over that town. The famous/infamous statue of Booker T. Washington unveiling the enslaved man and opening his eyes. Like, you see that. You can't ignore that. It's just a part of it. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but it's so intangible.
It does, because I've had firsthand experience with my parents. My dad graduated from Tuskegee. My mom went to Tuskegee before she transferred to Auburn for pharmacy school. But everything that you're saying, and you went to the university, is the same thing that I heard them talk about when they went to the Institute. Mm-hmm. And so it's just this continuum of that respect for the history that you talk about. And I've been going on that campus for years.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about homecoming.
Because you talk about it like you went.
Man, I be there.
Like, you gonna be at home?
Yeah, I be there. And I'm gonna ask the question. So I love it, and I'm still praying for Miss Tuskegee. So if you out there, get at me, just for my ratchet note of the day. Tuskegee was pretty influential.
You have to be there to get it.
Mm-hmm.
You can go, like, we're in DC. You can go on Howard's campus. You feel it when you go on Howard's campus. So it's across the board with HBCUs. But for Tuskegee, yeah, it's one of those places that you love it,
mm-hmm.
and some people hate it. It's kind of no in between.
Right.
But yeah, I went. Before I went, I knew of some people here in Birmingham who were 30, 40 years out, and it was all about Mother Tuskegee. They were going to make it down to homecoming. The alumni network in Birmingham is really strong. And one thing about their alumni network, I don't think you technically have to have graduated to be a part of it, is if you went there. So it's kind of that built-in understanding that, sometimes you can't afford to finish, but you're a part of that. It's a very specific experience. So.
Yeah. You going to homecoming this year?
Yeah. Mel Drea Sam.
Shout out. We're going to be looking for, hey, we looking for all y'all down there. I already marked the date. So let's transition. So after Tuskegee, what happened?
I came back to Birmingham, and I didn't know what I was going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But funny enough, the last month of school, last month I was on campus. I was kind of online trying to find things to do in Birmingham because I knew I was coming back, and one of my he ended up being a really good friend for a long time. But I came across this site, urbanham.com, and they would have mixes on there, and there was a DJ, and he played a song that like I felt like I was the only one who kind of knew about it. So I reached out, and we started talking back and forth, and then I come back to Birmingham, and come to find out he and 2 other super dope people put together this crew called the Soul Rebel Crew. And it was an artist collective. Mm-hmm. So you had some writers, you had some spoken word folks, some DJs, some musicians. And so coming back into Birmingham, I stepped into avant-garde. Like that was it, So for 6 months hardcore. Yeah, we were together for about 6 months. We were together for a long time, but I was kind of like, that was my focus.
So y'all were doing things, having things for the community?
Yeah, like we had this thing called Rise, and we would have 2 or 3 music artists, some live painters. It'd be like a bazaar. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like Art Beats and Lyrics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was like that before Art
Beats started going around.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get a good response? Were people picking up, kind of coming out and checking it out?
Yeah, I mean, people were so confused about what it was and excited and fascinated, and it was a little exotic. It's like nothing like this is in Birmingham. And so it was, we got a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But it was a way to really pull together groups of people who kind of marching to the beat of their own drum. And just doing their own thing, and we had to create our own events. We had to create our own scene. Sharif.
Right, Sharif.
That's how we met Sharif, how I met him. Sharif, is a spoken word artist. So he would come and he would speak, but Rise was a monthly event. And I believe, it was monthly. And it got to the point where people were like looking all the time. And so we had these things called sofa sessions, and it's just what it sounds like. We would sit, have sofa set up, just play music. It was real chill. And shout out to urbanham.com at Russ, because he used to let us use his office down, I think it was down here on 4th or 5th Avenue. And we would meet like almost every Sunday, trying to plan these events out. And that went on for a while.
Nah, that sounds like that old wine and cheese, don't it?
It does. And I was going to ask, though, for an event like that in Birmingham or in the South, what was the longevity of those events, and do they still exist today?
Well, they don't exist now, but I think the crew had been in existence for at least 6 months before I became involved. So they had at least like 6 months under their belt doing Rise. But overall, it might have been like a year and a half. And in that time, that's when I met my former husband, started having kids. Like all of us had been these free spirits for a while, and then everyone started having kids.
Getting serious. Yeah, that's that transitional period.
It was a transition.
People started getting serious and breaking away, getting into that. Girl, you got something you want to say, Doc?
But I think I want to kind of talk about the challenges of sustaining something like the urban, the thing that you were just referring to, and kind of like the podcast, that kind of being the challenge that we're facing today with new technology, new ideas that are popular in other regions, but are challenging to kind of introduce to the audience in the South, because I am interested in understanding how to address those challenges.
We in a way it feeds into the entire story. So saying we had this crew and we were trying to do these events, and it just got to the point where we just didn't have a lot of money, and honestly we could have kept going with it. We just didn't have the resources. But like BG brought up family life. This is where all of us started transitioning into being more serious about families. And in about a year and a half into my marriage, we opened a black bookstore called Malcolm's Reading Room in downtown Birmingham, in the middle of the Civil Rights District. And so it became the unofficial Soul Rebel Crew spot. So we had something where we could house things, but at the same time, we were selling these very niche book collection. But in the meantime, because I'm an artist and I have so many friends that are artists, we would try to house their artwork and do openings. And then we even did a 3-day festival that was pretty successful. But what it is, and I'm going to say this about our experience. I won't say this about Birmingham, but people are really finicky. You know what I mean? They want to participate in what's cool. They want to be a part of it, but they're not really encouraged to spend the money. They're not really encouraged to provide the resources. And, I can't really speak to why people are like that. You can't judge them because, right now we can say it's economics. Everyone's having a hard time financially, but in my experience, it was just that it's just kind of hit or miss. You could be hot and sustain it, but people sort of just move on to the next thing.
Talk about this. You and I have had a conversation about this. You're basically a young entrepreneur trying to bring this positive, creative entity to the city. And you have, like we say, historic city, known for a lot of civil rights history, and you've got a lot of prominent black leaders in this community. Talk about what type of support you got from the community, from those type of people with the project that you had going on.
Well, we ran into what I think a lot of young, savvy people run into, and it's gatekeepers. We were dealing with the gatekeeper mentality. And, we're down there with all these very iconic civil rights leaders. We're sitting next to the Civil Rights Institute. We're on the trail with, if you're from Birmingham, you know about Green Acres and the Carver Theater and that whole strip. We're sitting down there, and what we would do is try these children's story time, for lack of a better term. And we wanted to partner with the Civil Rights Institute, and they were not open to it. They had already been established. They already had their reputations. They already knew what they wanted to do. And, we were young, dreadlocks, big natural hair before it was cool to be natural, and very communal in the way that we sort of approached it. And I don't know if that was a turnoff, but it's a gatekeeper mentality. Scared to pass the torch, not willing to share the load, and sort of taking our youth as immaturity, because youth and immaturity those aren't mutually exclusive, but sometimes we're taught that that's the case. So because we had a lot of popularity, we were getting young people to come in and get involved and creating environments where it was family friendly. It was a rule: you come into the room, into the Malcolm's reading room space, don't act a fool. We could have events where there might be alcohol present, but no one's getting drunk because there could be kids around. And it was communal. Now don't get me wrong, we had people in that district or in that area who were uber supportive, older civil rights participants, I guess, civil rights movement participants. But what I would notice is it would be someone that was my mother's age. They would be the ones that were willing to come around and kind of see what we're doing. They're a little apprehensive, but they would at least try. But some of the people that were a little bit older, a bit more mature, maybe out there marching, they weren't real receptive to it. We had one big supporter, Dr. Huntley. Everybody knows, I don't know if you heard of Horace Huntley, but Dr. Horace Huntley founded UAB's African American Studies. I think it's a program because it's not a department. And he was one of the people that established the Civil Rights Institute back in 1992. But I don't know, can I say hell? I already said it.
Yeah, we'll put explicit language on this one.
But no, he was an interrupter. He was an interrupter. And when I say that, he's written a few books. His book is called Nerve Juice, but he went to, it might be University of Minnesota, somewhere like that. It was University of Minnesota. And he was going there for his PhD, and he and some of the other black students took over a building in protest because they weren't funding the program, or, I get the details mixed up sometimes, but he was an interrupter. Kind of like, how they say, Nelson Mandela, there were two versions of Nelson Mandela. The one that we know, our generation knows, is the older, jovial, wise, slow moving, but back in the day when he was a younger man, he was an outlaw, you know, in his approach. So for me, Dr. Huntley was that, like, he's a family, he's a cousin, but he was a supporter of the store, because he would come in and he would say, this is like some of the stores back in the day when I was young and we were trying to, you know, affect some change. So, you know, there was support there, but what the majority of the time we just ran into that.
Yeah, it's that suppression, and you know, I've done some stuff in my hometown, and Jeremy has seen it too, because we talk about this regularly. It's just that suppression of that new blood, that fresh thought and idea that doesn't necessarily forget about the past, but it needs to be an advancement or building on to what was established before. And you find a lot of suppression, especially in our community, of that. And I think it hurts us a lot because we don't have the opportunity to grow and to move forward because we're suppressing that bloodline. So
I think that speaks to a larger issue just in the black community when it comes to comparing us to the LGBT networks and those sort of things, of how we kind of retain knowledge or we suppress the younger generation, who are really the neophytes or the bloodline, with keeping the movement going or educating the next generation of people. And I just think that that's an area where we really could see improvement across the board within our community. But I did have a question, if you can I kind of derailed us, but if you can kind of talk about getting married, and you got married and started having kids, and how did you end up in the D.C. area?
Well, like I said, I met my former husband here in Birmingham. He's originally from Chicago, so he moved here for a job, and we got together, started having kids. Like things happened pretty quickly. In the time that we were married, of course, we had 3 children. He went to law school over at Cumberland. We opened a bookstore. I worked at different places. So, kind of, bought a house, all of the traditional things with a little bit of the non-traditional sort of thrown in there. But he ended up, finishing law school here, and he got accepted to a 1-year program at Georgetown in D.C. And at that point, we talked about it for a long time, but we decided to move. I'd always said that I wanted to move outside of Birmingham. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. And just for point of reference, I was 30 when we left. It was just, just kind of following his lead and being supportive of what he had going on. But on the inside, I knew that there was an opportunity for myself. But back to the family, I ended up having 3 sons. They're 8, 6, and 4. Malcolm, Masai, and Namala. Malcolm came along when I was about 23, 24, very young, not too long out of college. We finished in 2005. I finished in 2005. He was born at the end of 2006. So, just to give some perspective of experience or lack of experience at that time. And then we had, we opened a bookstore. And in the time that we had the store, I had Masai, who is my 6-year-old. And he is officially the bookstore baby because he spent his entire first 2 years in that store. And then I had my last child, Namala, who is now 4 years old. And he's the game changer. His name is Namala, and it means the finisher. And he's the game changer, and he was a game changer for me because I had him at home. I had home birth. So that's the one that made me a G.
Yeah, for real. I can imagine you being a G, and whoever else was there was a G for a home birth. Yeah.
You had a what they call them,
midwife.
A midwife come in and deliver, and that was by plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the purpose?
Well, that came about for me because, I had my first 2 in the hospital, very traditional births, and I actually didn't have this horrible hospital experience at that point. During the births, but I had a severe miscarriage between my second child and my third child, and the way I was treated in the hospital was horrible. I almost died from the experience, so that's it's a turning point there. But I was very, very conscious of the fact that the doctor didn't care. It was just somebody else that was coming through. And I understand, doctors kind of have to desensitize themselves or become desensitized to that a bit. But to me, it was just too much. I wasn't okay with that experience. I wasn't going to be at the mercy of a hospital ever again, at the mercy of a doctor. And, this isn't a dig on the guys, but I knew at that point I wasn't going to ever have another OBGYN that was a male, because I, as a person, required the empathy of a woman who has had children or gone through it. Because for me, the experience became better that once I went to the OR, the nurses, who were predominantly female, would come in and share their stories with me about having gone through the same experience and all of that. But very long-winded way of saying that miscarriage experience is what pushed me to say, I'm in control of my body. I'm in control of, I have rights. I'm confident in my body. I've had 2 children before. I can handle it. And then I wanted to be in the company of people that I knew and that I loved. 2 of my closest friends, Chauntel, she's sitting here. 2 of my friends were present while I labored. My mother was present. The midwives were present. My co-parent was present, because we, I don't really like to call him ex-husband, but
we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, co-parent was present, and I could do it my way. I was comfortable. He was a game changer. He was the one.
You're a soldier for sure, and you brought it up. So and Simone, and we'll talk about this as when we get to the end, because they're going to talk about some of the projects. But Simone recently launched her blog, the Shy Peacock, and I'm talking about phenomenal writing. And I have had to ask the question, like, Simone, have you been writing all your life? And she of course said yeah, because it reflects in the pieces that she puts together. But you got one that talks about that whole co-parent situation, and I ain't even a parent, but it was eye-opening to just the whole dynamic of having a family. You're married, you have a spouse, you got kids, but then you and the spouse, y'all go different ways, but you still have to be this rock for your kids. So talk about that blog a little bit. Kind of summarize what that blog was about.
Oh, that post?
Yeah.
Well, it was called Peace Between the Co-Parents, and it was just that. How do we get to a place of peace with somebody that, if there were no children, you want to be, away from, you want to be rid of? So, I just talked about how towards the end of the marriage, how it was very difficult to even have a conversation with each other, because we, as individuals, we're very, very, very much in control of ourselves. You know what I mean? And we don't like for me, I'm speaking for me, but he's very similar. My space is my space. And I'm the mama. I know what to do with the kids, because he had been in school and had done a lot of things that kind of took him away from the day-to-day parenting. And, so at one point I felt like I didn't need him. I didn't need to be around him. But the truth is, he's family, and I had to decide for myself that, 1, I was going to be a better woman. 2, he is the reason that I have the 3 greatest things that ever happened, and at a point we function as a family. We embarked on a lot of things together. And once I realized that, fighting with him and pushing back so hard about every single thing that he said or did, because I was pissed about things that had happened in the relationship, one of my children said something very eye-opening to me. He pretty much called me out. He was like, "You're mean to daddy, and daddy's mean to you." And you have to understand, everybody thinks their children are like the greatest, but I have some exceptionally observant children and very honest children. So there's no sense of you're going to get in trouble because you're speaking the truth. And so one of those children said something to me that it was like, oh my goodness, you are as bitter as you say you aren't. Mm-hmm. You know, you are as mean as you say you aren't. And, you know, your partner is your partner. You know, those kids are one thing I had to be honest about, they're so smart that I know they would try to pull a divide and conquer thing with us. And we're both very aware of it. So we had to decide together that we were going to do better because, you know, the kids would be getting away with all types of things because they know mommy and daddy don't get along.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, when I left my job at Travelers, I had a really difficult time financially. And when I left, I was pissed at him. We were still kind of going back and forth about silly things. And he had finally gotten settled. He had finished school. He had gotten settled and all of that. And so I started telling him about the financial situation because it was keeping me awake. You know, I wasn't myself. I was getting sick. It was ridiculous. And I wasn't spending time with the kids in the way that I would want to because I would be in my room worried about what was going to happen. And so like I pulled him aside one day and told him, you know, we need to talk. And then I kind of backed off of it. But I woke up one morning because I was so worried. And I just called him, told him everything that was going on. And historically, he's the type of guy that's really quiet. Like, clearly, I'm the talker. Like, he's a really kind of even-keeled guy, doesn't say very much. Even when you ask him a direct question, you might not get very much of a response.
That's most of us.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I've been accused of that.
Yeah. But I told him what happened, told him what I'd been going through. And he was like, okay, I can help you. It was painless. I was expecting some kind of pushback, and in that moment, his humanity became very clear to me. You know what I mean? And how he felt about me, not necessarily romantically, but how he felt about me became very, very clear. And it was about, okay, let me make sure you're okay because we got to make sure these boys are okay. Let's treat this with some common sense, you know? So it was from there where we were able to start talking and started really, truly getting along. Like, we butt heads, but it's not the end of the world, you know. My boys are just that, they're boys. And I'm a mother, I'm a woman. And I know that they need their father to be present. You know, they probably need to live with him at some point. And probably when they get a little bit older, but, you know, it was just like, I want to have a full life of my own. You know, I want to know that I'm raising good citizens of the world. I want to know that their father's okay, because if he's okay, they're okay. If they're okay, I'm okay. You know, we're all linked in there together. And even if they're outside entities that don't really understand it, we have to understand.
So you moved to D.C. Because your husband at the time was going to Georgetown. Mm-hmm. You started working, I guess that was back in 2012, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you were working, doing some insurance stuff, as you mentioned. That didn't work out. You got into the nonprofit. At what point did y'all get divorced, and just give us a timeline of your 3 years in DC?
Okay. Well, we got there at the end of 2012. We separated. Started talking about separation and kind of started realizing there were issues at the beginning of 2013. So it was pretty quick. So clearly we were having some issues before we went up to DC. And in July of 2013, we separated. I got my own place. He had finished school and was kind of moving around, bouncing around from like temp jobs and stuff, just trying to get settled.
So both of y'all resided in D.C. but two separate households in 2013.
Yeah.
Man, the cost of living high.
Oh yeah.
You gotta make that work, player.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, because I want to be careful about putting all his business out there. It was tough because, like, I had the kids with me, you know, and then we have a very unusual situation because his younger sister came with us to help with the kids when we first went up there. And when we separated, she stuck around. Like, she lived with me because the kids were with me, so she was there to help. So we had a lot of help, y'all. It wasn't some, you know, we got a lot of money. We had family willing to make the change. And then she's younger, and it was an opportunity. And my husband's originally from Chicago, to give you some perspective too. So she was, looking to move because she's an artist. But anyway, we separated in 2013. We were divorced in October 2014 is when it was final. And we went through a lot trying to get balance with ourselves, because we walked in and we filed the divorce together. Like, it was at that point, so it was like, all right, let's just go get this done.
Talk about that actual day that y'all went and got divorced, because talk about how that worked out.
Okay, so in Maryland, I don't know about other places, but in Maryland, when you get divorced, you have a few options. And usually if it's sort of a straightforward, everybody agrees about everything, they give you the opportunity to do you have to appear in front of a judge no matter what. And so they'll give you like these little short mini court sessions, 30 minutes tops, right? So we go in, and he's like, we actually walked in together, and we were sitting there talking, waiting for our turn, because it was other proceedings or whatever. We sitting there talking, kind of joking. And then we go up, and it was awkward because he had to go to like one table. I had to go to like the plaintiff table. He had to go to the defendant. We kind of like looked at each other like,
y'all on the people's court?
Yeah, like, dang, this serious. Like, and so anyway, we go through the proceedings and everything. It was very straightforward, very easy, because we had already discussed everything that we wanted to have happen, custody, all of that. And so when we get up to leave, and now you have to understand, D.C., if you're not from D.C., is a very public transportation friendly place. So my co-parent is like, he's in the public transportation. He rides the train, and I drive. I'm a Southern girl, so that's what I do, is drive. So we're getting ready to leave, and I just look over at him. I was like, hey, you get on the train? You need a ride? And, he looked at me and was like, I was like, all right, let's go. Come on, let's go. And the judge heard this, and the judge started laughing because we got along too well.
Yeah.
Compared to most people.
You gotta be the smoothest divorce proceedings in the history of the world. But I guess that's telling, though, to like the place that you all were at. Yeah. That's even though you're going away from the marriage, that's a healthy relationship for the sake of y'all and for the sake of those boys. So it's a lot of strength in that.
The summation of all these experiences that we talked about, from having the teacher, Miss Scott, I believe her name was, to kind of pour into you, and then attending Ramsey, Tuskegee, the bookstore, getting married, all these life experiences, I tend to believe equipped us to help us to fulfill our purpose and passion. So how have all of those events shaped you into the person you are today, to following whatever your purpose is?
I think the common thread between all those experiences, I have a choice. I have a choice about everything that I do in my life. I can choose to work hard and get good grades. I could choose to go to college or not. I could choose to get married. I could choose to stay in a marriage that I'm not happy in. I can choose to look at my children as assets or otherwise. I have a choice. And then I'm a person that's always been very, very fortunate in, like, I don't know if y'all talk about like manifesting things and manifestation and law of attraction and all of that. I've been very blessed to be good at law of attraction, good at manifesting things, and being open to the experiences. And I became very, it became clear to me because during probably a tough period in our marriage, I closed all that off. Like, I was following this expectation of, you have to be uber responsible. You have to be like the perfect housewife, because at the time, he was working and we had closed the store and all of that. So I was at home and trying to feed into this expectation that made me rigid and a little uptight. And I noticed that the blessings weren't flowing the way that they had been. Or like, life wasn't as, I wasn't dancing through life anymore. And that's when it became clear I had trained myself to shut that part of myself off. And it wasn't just something that you have as a kid. You can carry that with you. So it's choice. that's been the biggest lesson. I have a choice in everything that I do.
I talk about this a lot. Growing up, I was able to develop this real witty, quick on my feet kind of response. Like coming home from school, we would sit on the back of the bus and we would do something called janking, where we would go back and forth with each other. And not knowing at the time that those kind of skills would be something I developed that I currently use even with the podcast, thinking on my feet real fast, or even when I'm at work. But those kind of skills, what I would call something that I kind of picked up along the way that really helps me today. Or even when I reflect over my life, we used to do wine and cheese in Houston. Shout out to the Houston crew. We would do a wine and cheese, and I see how, and then I did the blogging for a little while, and now I'm doing the podcast thing. But all those things prior to the podcasting kind of helped to shape the podcast. So I was kind of just wondering something similar with you. Are there any tangible kind of things that kind of help to shape the story that you may tell through your blog?
You know what? It's interesting you say that. That example you gave is almost spot on, except for, it wasn't the back of the bus. It was Sunday dinner with my family. My family is super sarcastic, like super sarcastic, super honest. One very important lesson I can say from my grandfather, because I was the only grandkid to know my grandfather, but he used to tell me, as he would tell my mother and uncles and aunt, it's okay to be honest, pay attention to what's going on around you, tell the truth. Age doesn't bar you from being honest and speaking the truth. You can be respectful with it. So it was a combination of being in a family of very observant people, very sarcastic people, very loving and compassionate people. And then knowing how to go out and be that way in the world to people you don't know. How to empathy and compassion and like I said, kind of coming from that sarcastic background. So I get what you're saying, like with the wittiness and observance. So as a writer, it's informed my process a lot. I can sit here and have a conversation with you and think about 4 posts that I can write based on a couple of sentences, and that's because I'm listening. And I'm a woman too. We're known for being able to multitask, and a mother, and a this, and a that. What was that look for? BG.
Hey,
anyway, see,
multitask, yeah, y'all sure can multitask, for sure.
But but embracing those qualities. So it started, like I said, with being in a very, very, very observant, close-knit family unit who would call you to task without hesitation.
We kind of touched on it earlier, but can you kind of talk about the blog that you started, the type of post that you've put on the blog, and what your hopes and intent are for the blog?
Yeah, so the blog is called The Shy Peacock, and
why you choose that name?
The Shy Peacock is, it's an oxymoron. Like, peacocks are known for having these like beautiful feathers, and it's a show when they like spread their feathers, and it's kind of serendipitous that peacock, cocky. But there is a shy quality, like I can be that way. I had like big curly hair, like red lipstick, gold hoops. But it's a very organic and genuine part of who I am. Sometimes I'm oblivious to, reaction to having big hair, like it's just the thing, it's my thing. So that's where the shyness comes in. So you talk about people who are like, is it the extroverted introvert? So it's sort of a play on that ideal. And I started it because I told myself I was going to identify myself as whatever I wanted myself to be. And I didn't want to leave this earth not having made my living based on who I am as a person. I wanted to be able to support myself from the creations of my mind. So, I'd always been around artists, always had been in tune with my artist friends, in the music art, visual art and things like that, and never really considered myself an artist, but I knew I had a way with words. and to write came very easily. I was very observant, back to like having a family that's observant and intelligent people. And you know, the blog ended up starting because I had so much to say, and I have to give a shout. I have a friend that I met a few months before that, and that friend was the very first person that I went into the situation and was like, full disclosure, this is the kind of stuff that I'm into. And it would spark a lot of conversation about personal philosophies and personal experiences. And then I realized that on some cases I was repeating myself. Because it was like my personal philosophy. Like I realized
that's really what you stood. That's really what you stood on.
Yeah, because I was repeating myself and saying things in a different way, same thing in different ways about my personal mottos, I guess. And so I decided to start writing it down. And there wasn't a real plan. It was just I'm super observant, and I would like put these posts up on Facebook. And get these responses like, yeah, I was thinking that. And like, you know, and I realized like, yeah, I have something to say here. So it was just about collecting my thoughts and my experiences and looking back and saying, you're 33 years old, you have 3 children, you've been married, you've owned a business, you've made a major move, you've done this and you've done that. Like I felt like I had done quite a bit that was interesting. But I also knew it wasn't just my experience. You know, people had been experiencing these things, and there are all these trailblazing women, men, whatever. So I was just trying to collect that information, almost like a time capsule for myself and for my children, for my boys. And hopefully, you know, I might have a daughter one day, and, you know, she can see where I was coming from. But once I started doing it and added the organizational piece to it, you know, planning out blog posts and all of that, I realized I could do it, because I never really thought that I was that kind of organized.
Right.
You know, so when I realized I could do that, it was like I could take this further. I could really support myself doing something like this. So I started putting my work out enough to, you know, like offering to write for, like, there are a lot of online magazines, like Natural Hair is a thing right now. So like right now I'm a staff writer for a natural hair blog. But I've been fortunate because I'm the OG natural on staff. So I'm not necessarily writing about the same things like routines and that kind of stuff for people who are newly transitioning. And it gave me the opportunity to start writing about empowerment as a woman of color, and, you know, how you could be the cool kid and be conscious. You know, like, we are complicated and complex, but simple at the same time, you know, so I could simplify it. So what the blog has evolved into for me is realizing that I have a talent for working with people. So like life coaching, like I don't like that word, life coaching, but you know, just having I've had some very good teachers, you know, very good teachers about, like I said, that ideal of choice and carrying that to the point of manifesting the things that you want out of life and not necessarily being defined by someone else or a situation or what someone who doesn't know you says, you know. So it's been something to kind of talk about. Like I have this post, like, I'm conscious, but I like to curse. Yeah. You know, and it's true. Like I'm having to keep it clean, right?
Yeah, you working hard. We appreciate that.
I'm keeping it clean.
We got grown folk listening to this show, so yeah.
You know,
but what is your ultimate? Obviously, writing, being able to articulate and share with the world life lessons that you've learned on your journey. What is your ultimate goal, or what is your ultimate desire for the blog, and just ultimately with your next steps in your career?
Well, I want the blog to be a safe space for men and women, but I do focus a lot on women, to be able to speak about their experiences without any shame, you know, without feeling like everyone follows the same path. It's very interesting because it's become very clear to me, like, you know, we alluded to talked about this a little bit before we got started about like violence against Black women. And through this experience, I'm coming to grips, and it's in my face all the time, that Black women are attacked always in all ways. You know, like it's a constant. Like, we have learned to accept abuse, whether it's from the system, whether it's from within our own community. And this is, you know, I'm not going to go off the rails here, but like just like misogyny within the Black Power movement, misogyny within the Civil Rights movement. And we are expected at the same time to carry a group of people to a better place. So it's kind of like we have to deal with the issues that are going on within our own community at the same time. Like, we're simultaneously trying to get us as a people of color to a different place. You know, we want to be humanized. We want to be seen as important, or we treat it with respect, you know. But in the meantime, you know, we have things that we have to deal with. So I say all this to say, like, we were talking a little bit earlier about gatekeepers. We are, how old are you? 33. And Ty, how old are you? You same age?
34.
34. So we're millennials, right? And we get
Well,
lumped in.
I'm not gonna.
Okay, you don't identify as a millennial.
I don't identify as a millennium simply because, you know, that date kind of changes between different years. I would more say we Generation X versus Generation Y, but go ahead.
But see, I mean, I'm glad you say that, because that's a matter of debate. It really is, because it
is because that's significant to me, because, and it's really defined by when is Generation Y or when are the millenniums defined, and some say it's 82, some say it's 85. Regardless, I fall outside of a typical what would be defined as a millennium, so I don't kind of identify as a millennium. I
mean, and that's kind of the point, you know, like, we are in that very interesting space where we are Generation Xers, the younger Generation Xers, or the older millennials. And I'm not speaking for you, Tyke, because you've chosen, you know, sort of how to identify, which is cool. But, you know, we're all in that space where we can remember not having the internet and not having cell phones and not depending on social media platforms to connect with people, you know, but at the same time, we were kids having to learn how to use the internet and email and all of that. But the point that I'm getting to about our age group, we have a responsibility to the younger generations, younger part of the generations. Like, it's a given that we have to support the kids that are coming along. But as a 33-year-old, I have a responsibility to a 25-year-old that's out there marching with the Black Lives Matter crew. Because I'm of the opinion we can keep marching, but we need to have some policy changes. We need to have some tangibles in place, you know. But as a 33-year-old woman, and like I said, this is a matter of debate. So I'm going to use Marilyn Mosby as an example, because she's 35. You know, she might identify as Generation X or not. But to me, the way that things have played out in Baltimore, she's in a position where she could call the shots on charging these officers in the death of Freddie Gray, right? She literally can affect change. She literally can hear a cry from a 25-year-old out there marching saying this isn't right. Or Freddie Gray, who's 26? You know, this younger adult millennial. And she could call a shot and was in a position to do something about it, sort of from behind the scenes. And I use that example because I think that as older millennials, however you identify, we have a responsibility to be feeding knowledge and resources to this younger part of the generation.
See, I have two, so we can take this debate or this commentary in two directions. Mm-hmm. We can go behind door one, which is essentially having a conversation around what I see as our generation, whether you're a late Generation X or early millennium, everyone trying to lead a movement with very little unity or strategy. So we can go that direction, or we can go the direction around or we can go the direction around how millenniums, the more younger millenniums, not seeing the importance, or not and I don't want to use that word, but just, you made a comment and I wrote it down. You said, I have always wanted to support myself from the creation of my mind. And what I wanted to get your thoughts on is because, you know, one thing that I've been trying to, I do a lot. I'm always in thought. I'm a deep thinker. I'm constantly thinking. I'm constantly trying to understand how things work. Like for example, I was looking at IG today, this morning, just now actually, and there are several posts on different events, and everybody is a leader. You know, we got this person leading this talk show later today, this round table. You got this person leading this round table. And really, there's no organization or strategy at a macro level. But then, how do we identify the authenticity or who's being organic, even in the grassroots level? And so it's just, to me, it's just everybody. It's not one drum beat. You know, you know, even in your situation where you have a well-defined niche of women that you want to impact. But then at the same time, I have a group of lady friends that are trying to do something in Houston, and then you have another group that's trying to do this. And so I'm just trying to understand, how do we streamline all of these various organizations, and everybody wants their way to be the right way. And if you're not doing it my way, or
I think no matter what it is, it's going to start with a few things. So let me say this, that everything comes down to the individual person, right? So just to give you an idea of like I just gave this example about Marilyn Mosby. She is able to affect change. Somebody like me, I might be able to take a group of 25-year-old women and talk to them about getting organized and kind of just putting the truth out there, because I'm young enough to relate to them, but old enough to have had some experience. But what that requires is for me to say, I can't be the star of this show. I can't be the person that's stomping at the mic and doing the interviews. Like, I can't be D-Ray, because, you know, that's the dude right now. Like, I can't be, or I have no desire to be that person, because that's not my role. So what it goes to is removing the ego. Like, don't have this expectation of being alive when you see these when these changes happen. You might not be present for it, right? So you start there, and then when you talk to these younger people, you kind of take this approach of, I have resources, I know how this system works, let me show you how it works, and maybe you can dismantle it, you know. And specific to the events that are happening today with the police brutality, this is not our movement as a 33-year-old. It's not ours to call the shots on. You know what I mean? It's ours to assist in.
And facilitate. And that's it. That's the role. We're facilitators. As far as, you know, getting some coalition or like some figurehead, my personal opinion is, like, let that go. Like, that's not gonna happen, because we have, there are too many people for that.
And it's so much. We're so far advanced technologically. You have so many resources and so many outlets, so everybody has an avenue to push whatever their movement is. So the thought of having what you're talking about, this coalition or this same movement in the light that we've known it to be with, say, that we always talk about the civil rights movement, it's not going to look like that. And at this stage in the game, that's not going to be effective anyway. I think the only thing that we should be seeking from a consensus standpoint are these agenda items, these things that we know definitely affect us adversely. And then if everybody it has that as their focus point, then we can take a multifaceted or multidimensional approach, and everybody has a space. And then with that is the removal of that individualism. It's like,
We don't have the sole answers, but this is going to be our approach. And if you need us on this side, we can collaborate. You do your thing, and we help out each other. And I think that's the language that we must speak with these podcasts, with these blogs. It's just everybody utilizing their strength to attack whatever it is that's on the agenda for that day.
You make a good point, BG, and that's essentially what I'm getting at as well. How do we mobilize everyone to utilize their strengths, like you were saying, and operate as a full body? So where you may have one group operating as the mouth, the other group may be operating as the hand or the foot or what have you. And that's the reason why, I kind of get discouraged when I can look at IG and see 10 separate posts or I'm introduced to 10 separate life coaches, and then I kind of want to understand, how do I subscribe or how do I prescribe that life coach, because that life coach may not even be speaking what the people need to hear. And then who is to say I'm speaking what?
I think it's just important what we're doing, what Simone is doing, what Chauntel is doing. It's just important to get out here and speak from your place of truth in whatever way and whatever means that you want to use. And I think our thing is just being able to find each other, because you got the people posting on IG, and most of that is individualism. It's everybody putting themselves on a platform, but we have to do these things that we're doing so that we can find each other. Like, I've known Simone, but I didn't know Simone in depth or her thought processes or how she felt, what her perception was, until I started reading these blogs. And it's like, well, dog, Simone is on the same wavelength that we're on with this podcast. So we have to do it. We have to put this out, and then we just have to find each other and see where that meeting point is. So, and it's going to be a minority. Like with most things positive, it's going to be a minority of the people that's about it. So it's going to be that minority strengthening itself to push whatever it is going to push. Most movements never start with just this majority of people seeing the light and getting on board.
I mean, and the thing about, and I'm going to shout out the millennials.
Shout them out.
But no, I won't say millennials. I will say maybe 18 to 40. Is the way that we do things today is very socialist in nature. I am not suggesting, socialism, because people get worked up about that. But just think about the phenomenon of crowdfunding. The way that crowdfunding works, that's very socialist. But what it is people are finding out what others need, what others are trying to do. And like you said, we find each other, through these blogs and through these podcasts and all these things. And really what we want to do is support, because I think when it comes down to it, people want to support. That's why you can get a crowdfunded project for $10,000 and it's funded in 2 days for 3 times the amount of money. And people who could care less about doing that in their lives, they want to see someone else be able to do it. And I think that that's something that our age group has mastered. And so like I said, it's influences of a socialist attitude, because I think there's an understanding that your individualism is not gone. You don't lose that. But we all have a role to play. We all have something that we can do to contribute to the greater good, or whatever that project is. And I think, and this is to backtrack a little bit about talking about this gatekeeper mentality that we came across. I think what I saw was, they were putting in all this hard work in the movement, and, good intention, and even successful, situations, successful outcomes rather. But who's to say there was ever a real plan to pass the information along? And don't get me wrong, what I'm saying is understandable, but when you are in the movement and that is your life, you may not be thinking about, let me put these plans down
for 50 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, so, that's not an attack, but I think that that's just the nature of it. And because we have these lessons and we know what it looks like, we have a responsibility to be able to document this stuff on a podcast. We can blog it. We can encapsulate everything very easily. Like we talk about IG, like, and this isn't movement, but there's a guy who's very popular. Like, he's a very attractive guy because he's bearded and all this stuff or whatever. He's always with his child. I follow him, and one day he put up a post where he was like, I'm not posting these pictures for the likes. I'm not posting these pictures for you to want to, just to do anything in particular other than just like my pictures and follow me and all of that. I have a 1-year-old son who I want to document this stuff. I want him to be able to see, even if it's little clips, little 15-second clips or just pictures. I want him to see I was a good father to him and that I cared about his development and I wanted him to be okay. And then he goes further into his story and he talks about he lost both his parents by the time he was 16. And he just turned 30 or 31, something like that. So it was a milestone age for him because both of his parents died before that age. So you do have that element. It's just a matter of what BG was saying. It's like you have to find those people and then adjust a little bit, because you can have 500 life coaches, but they all have something different about them. I think that just the way things are right now for us as Black people, it's really hard to focus in on, okay, let's get these 500 life coaches in the room, and then we're going to do a side-by-side comparison and vet each one. We can't do that effectively because we're fighting for our lives. We're trying to survive every day. We're trying to stay on our toes when you drive in. For instance, I drove from D.C. You better believe after what happened in Texas to Sandra Bland, I was kind of like,
You were cautious?
I was cautious. I mean, I'm telling you. So we have to have a really very realistic approach and attitude about how this goes. So to recognize that civil rights leader or the new crop are flawed people, but at the same time they need to be held accountable. We have to recognize the damage that's been done to the people within the community. So you look at this whole Heathcliff Huxtable situation we got going. And I mean, let's be real about this. All this stuff came out. Multiple women made their accusations, but as people, we did not want to believe it. It was a fight to get people to believe it. And it took this exorbitant amount of people to come out. You know what I'm saying? And it was just this thing where we like to sanitize what's happened. And I think that's the thing that's done us a disservice. So anyway, we have, we're in this generation where everything's social media, IG, you post everything, you got these life coaches, you got all this stuff going on. There is a level of transparency here that we haven't really had before. Now you got a lot of phony people. That's the nature also of this day and age. I think we have extremes. We have these super transparent people, and then you got these super phony people. But instead of focusing the energy on the phony people, look at the transparent people and see what they're saying and what they're doing, and you kind of have to meet people where they are and realize where you are. And I think it keeps a lot of the disappointment at bay about it. Like, you can't put all your faith into one thing or one person, period. It's just in life, but you can control you can look at yourself and figure out what you can do and what you have to offer and what your role is. So, like I said, we're talking about this movement as a whole and removing the ego and the individualistic attitude when it comes to that. But at the same time, you have to preserve the individual health and the individual clarity so that you can be a part of that larger movement. So I'm sorry, I'm done. I'm done.
What's next?
Yeah, we got Chauntel coming to the microphone. Chauntel, can you hear in that headpiece right there? Can you hear me? Chauntel's a doula. Tell the people what a doula is. She laughing. What you laughing for?
We got a headphone situation
Oh,
here.
y'all gotta get close.
Okay, so a doula is a trained labor professional. I assist women in their process as they're having their babies. So that's what I do.
Okay, so in the process, so what you have to like, are you in the?
What you mean, like birth class or something? Where I go in there and go,
So actually, it starts.
I'm not breathing technique. Please educate him.
It starts prenatally. When mom finds out she's pregnant, I actually teach childbirth classes. So we help prepare mom for actual delivery. And yes, I'm actually in the delivery with mom as she has her baby.
so a midwife, is that different?
Yes, a midwife is different. So a midwife deals with mom from the waist down. She actually delivers the baby. And I'm a doula, so I help mom with coping skills. I help her from the waist up.
So did you attend Tuskegee University to learn how to do this?
Hold up. Let me interject here.
I'm trying to understand. What do I learn?
No, sir.
Where do I learn how to do these? Where do I learn how to become a doula?
Dog, you want to be a dude?
No, I'm just asking for the audience. This is not. I know nothing about this occupation, so I need to ask these questions. I can't assume our audience knows as well. So how do I become and how do I join this occupation?
Okay, so there's a doula organization of North America is who I train through. They offer workshops across the country, and you attend a workshop. It varies in length. I was there for about a week, all day long. And then you go through a certification process. You have to attend so many births, read different texts. You have to do your own research, do some essays, and all that type of stuff. So it's pretty intensive.
So you went for a week to training, and then how long before you was able to get the certification to do the essays, and how long did it take you after that? 6 weeks, 6 months, a month? What's the?
Actually, it takes a while because you do have to actually attend the births. That's what takes the longest thing. You're working with the mom throughout her pregnancy. So it can take, some women take a couple of years. It took me about 8 months to get certified. So it's a process.
Okay. Well, thank you for that education, because I had never heard of that, and nor should I have heard of it, because I am not giving birth, and no one, I do not have any children.
No baby mamas.
And I have no baby mamas, so thank you for that education.
These two, they've got a project in the making. So just talk to the people, tell them what you all are working on and all that type of stuff.
Okay.
We're trying to get situated over here. Simone don't want to move.
I couldn't reach your lips.
And Chauntel, thank you for being patient, because I know we've been recording for a long time, and we do appreciate your patience and sitting through the entire interview.
It's no problem. I've enjoyed it.
Anyway, y'all talk about the project, man.
So what we are doing, and just to kind of back up, Chauntel is a doula, and I had a home birth, so I had a midwife. So, in the midst of me putting together this blog and just life experiences, like just womanhood, period, and being mothers, because Chauntel's a mother as well, we just got to talking one day about how being a mother lends itself to you evolving in other areas of your life, So what we decided to do, we put together a project called Umi Crowns. Umi, U-M-I, which is a word meaning mother. Anybody in the most deaf, Umi says. And crowns is self-explanatory. And so it's going to be an IG Instagram feed where we have submissions from women who are at least 1 year postpartum, which, this is fluid. We can make some changes, as it comes about. But women that are 1 to 2 years postpartum, and allow them to talk about how motherhood made them feel good about themselves, how being pregnant, specifically being pregnant and kind of being on the other side of pregnancy, made them feel good about themselves. So You know, we're going to be launching it here in the next month or two. And we are already looking for, you know, mothers to submit. So, you know, an example would be I might take a picture by myself, maybe not with my children. I might do it with my children, but I talk about how motherhood specifically made me more confident about myself, more willing to go after the things that I wanted to do, how to feel myself a little bit, be okay about feeling myself, be okay about feeling sexy, or, you know, sexy is kind of a random word, but it captures more than that, you know, what I'm trying to say. So it's called Umi Crowns, and Chauntel, being, like I said, a doula. What's the name of your service? Baobab Birth Collective. Baobab Birth Collective, and Shy Peacock are almost like it's two sides of the same coin. You know, like hers is very specific to motherhood, and I kind of talk about what happens after the fact.
Like, what is it that spoke to you? Say, like, we need to come up with this type of collective to speak to that demographic.
I'll speak for myself. I am a advocate and a champion for women not being vilified if they are mothers who choose to chase dreams and, you know, do things outside of the traditional mother role. Now, I'm not talking about people who abandon their children or like are unfit parents, but it's interesting. Like, I saw this movie with a friend of mine last night, and we actually had a conversation about this, about having those times where you just kind of want to step back from the kids and that not be your identity. You want to be able
what you saw? You must saw NWA Straight Outta Compton.
No, I didn't see that.
Good guess,
Yeah.
but wrong.
No. It's this. I didn't really even want to go see this movie, but it's like it's the latest Meryl Streep movie.
I don't know nothing about that. Keep going.
But the main character is a woman who wanted to be a rock star, and so she had gotten married when she was young, got married, had kids, and then when she and the husband split up, she kind of left and did her own thing, and then she's having to come back home and like interact with her kids who are now grown and all of that. But you know, the truth is, men get to do that stuff all the time. You know, I'm going to take care of my family, right? I'm going to hit the road and I'm perform, you know, because I have bills back here, and it's sort of readily acceptable. Women's is not so much, you know. And then, we're just like, we're full people. We really have dreams. We do have aspirations. Like, it goes back for me, the co-parenting thing is very necessary because I want to maintain a relationship with my children that's full, healthy, happy. You know what I mean? Like, it's open, honest. But there might be times where in my pursuit of this writing thing, and when I do the things that I really want to do and I'm setting out to do, I have to trust that their father is going to be able to take care of them. You know, I have to trust that that's going to stay in place. And that feeds me as a woman outside of motherhood. You know, so I don't, that's for me, that's where it came from.
What spoke to you about this project?
Well, I'm obviously very passionate about motherhood. And so that was the first thing. And then the second thing was I was a very non-traditional parent. I did stuff way different than most people do them. And I enjoyed it. Like, it was great for me. I was able to do a lot of the things. I took my children. I went back to school. My kids would sit in class with me sometimes. You know, we did whatever we had to do, and we made it work, and it was okay. You know, I want women to know that it's all right, regardless of how you choose to do it and what works for you. It's okay.
Should men be even interested in looking at this idea, and if so, what should men take away from it?
Absolutely, men are necessary. You know, bottom line, obvious ways, but they are. You know, you all are very necessary. Like, you know, I have a problem with this divide and conquer mentality that we've bought into as people, and no matter the race. You know, it's important that men see it, because if you're going to have children, you're going to have to have children with a woman. You know, if you are an involved partner, and really, you too? Okay. Anyway.
Well, you know, the thing that kind of changed these days.
I know.
Yeah, but that's another
But
part.
you know, but That's another podcast. But if you choose to be present,
Yeah.
You know, men need to know what women are feeling in that postpartum stage. They need to know that it's not them. You know, sometimes it's not them. Sometimes it is, but no, it's not always some crazy issue that's being made up, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just informative. I mean, I'm a firm believer, if you are able to have children, if you decide you want to have kids, you need to know everything about having kids. Even if you can't live it and experience it, you put in the work for that research. So this is for everyone. You know, you'll get something out of it. You'll understand that, you know, you might meet that mama that has had multiple children, multiple baby daddies, blah, 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 but she's more than that. You know what I mean? You don't know what goes into her managing all those children. And let's say the fathers are involved, managing those relationships. Like my favorite artist, Erykah Badu, I mentioned her earlier. You know, she caught flack because she had 3 kids, 3 different dads, but she is in charge of her life. You know, it's like it's a requirement that those fathers are present and they figure out how to handle it for the sake of the children. You know, so it speaks to, you know, like a power dynamic that doesn't necessarily oppress another person, specifically with men and women. So, yeah, I'm passionate about this.
Yeah, and I'm excited. Like, I'm excited about all this stuff that's taking place with you all. Like, it's been fulfilling for me to see it. Like, because we know we have our thing with the, you know, this podcast and the blogs and all that kind of stuff, but to see other people on that same wavelength, it really confirms that what we're doing is the right thing. Like, you know, that purpose is real, and like you say, we do have a responsibility. So I'm ecstatic about the whole thing. Tight.
I feel like the 3 of us should be quiet and leave the floor to Chauntel to share anything she would like to share, because she sat through this for the past hour and a half, and I would at least like to give her an opportunity to share what's on her heart and mind as we do as we open up the flow.
Well, we had to put in some work to get what we got, so we ain't gonna put too much more pressure on her. But what we will say is, Chauntel, what all you have going on?
Well, before you even do that, let her just share what's on the heart. You have anything on your heart, Chauntel?
The floor is yours, like in church.
Yeah, the floor. Don't feel obligated to, but we just saying that I would like to be fair, given that you sat through this for an hour and a half.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, Ty. You are so considerate. I don't really have much to add. Just the fact that another reason that I wanted to add that I'm really passionate about doing the birth work that I do is because of the outcomes in minority communities, the health disparities. And that's really one of the primary reasons that got me into this work. Infant mortality, premature births, even the mothers dying in childbirth, and it's outrageous. And Simone was talking earlier about her miscarriage and how she felt like the doctor just didn't care about her, and that happens a whole lot of times in the delivery room. And so that's part of the reason why I go into the delivery room, to just ensure that the mother is informed about what's going on, and that she has an advocate that's there for her to help improve those outcomes. So that is all.
See, that was wonderful.
Yeah, perfect. She like just opened up like that.
Yeah, because I know she had been sitting there, and I'm sure she got something on her heart. So let's give her an opportunity to share.
You're a great host. So, with Chauntel, is there any way that people that might have questions or want to know more about it, is there a way that they can get in contact with you? You have contact information?
Yes, I have a Gmail account. It's Chauntel the Doula at Gmail. I also have the Facebook page. It's Chauntel the Doula on Facebook, and you can reach out to me there.
Spell Chauntel for them.
It is CHAUNTEL.
And we'll put that on the IG and all that stuff, so you can be able to get in contact with her if you need to. Simone, how can the people reach you?
Well, the blog is theshypeacock.com. you can reach out to me directly on the website. I have IG, Twitter, Facebook, all the same thing, the Shy Peacock. And my direct email is the Shy Peacock Lives @gmail.com.
And you also said you do other writing, so what else can they see your interest?
Yeah, the magazine. I write for naturalfromtheroots.com, and it's an online magazine, so it's naturalfromtheroots.com. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you. And be Jeezy. How can the people reach you and I?
Well, they can definitely reach us for these podcasts and more blogs, freelunchpodcast.com. Also, let us know what you think about these podcasts on Twitter, FreelunchPodC, and check for us on Instagram, Freelunch Podcast. I like the feather drop too. I see you added that little twist to it. She got some short daily messages, call them feather drops. That's pretty clever, so I like that. Also, check for your boy. Instagram, BG_the27kid. Holla. Miss TU, if you out there, I'm waiting. See you at homecoming. Simone hooked that up.
I got you.
I let one go, man. All right, dog, you got it.
I'm just shaking my head.
It just got awkward.
Thomas Allen Collection. Thomas Allen Collection. Thank you, Thomas Allen Collection, for the wonderful ties that you provide the host of this show. Also, thank you to the other sponsors and those that provide support to the faithful listeners. And if you are interested in sponsoring and donating this show, BG and I are working on some really big interviews that'll be coming up soon, and we'll be traveling hopefully to conduct those interviews. So any sponsorship that can be provided, we always welcome those sponsorships. So thank you for tuning in to this portion of the Free Lunch Podcast. We are the South's hottest podcast duo, and we are out of here. Free Lunch Podcast.
Let's go, let's get it. Let's go, let it go now. Let it go, let's get it. Get it, got 'em. Let's go, let's get it. Let's go, let it go now. Let it go, let's get it. Super mathematics, not a problem, no lock for that old block. So sign away for that bull rock. Super small, handcrafted art designs, no they know not. Flow tougher than tough time. Blacker than the gram, they drum line. No overdose, I'm overwoke. I be awake for crunch time. Be everywhere like sunshine. I lead right close. Punchline, I beat the track, I eat the track. Brown paper breakfast, lunchtime, dinner date, dessert tray. Ramadan, flow hungry, you see the sign between the line and G's only. No dummies, I flow lovely, they go nutty. They catch a feeling, these hoes touchy. I tell that jump off, no bunch. No awakening, home study. But you're so pretty. Bless your soul. Sometimes the best way to touch him. Stand and go. Let's go, let's get it. Let's go, let it go now. Let it go, let's get it. Get it, got 'em. Let's go, let's get it. Let's go, let it go now. Let it go, let's get it. Mathematics, before I chose the path chose me. This a Lord's plan, divine decree.